Hi guys, it's Mary. Welcome back. Today we're going to do a video about the Mature Beauty Starter Kit, or according to Mary, anyway. This has been on my list for quite some time. I made this list of things that I think that if you're going to start wearing makeup again, like I did. I mean, the whole time my kids were growing up, I didn't wear makeup unless I was going to a special event, you know, and then I would just run to the drugstore real quick and pick up like a lipstick and a mascara and call it a day. Because really that was all I could afford. I have champagne taste on a beer budget.
Champagne? Yeah. Champagne.
When I left off with my makeup in my late 20s was different than when I re-entered makeup at around 50, 55. And if you're like me and you're just getting back into makeup, well, there's probably a different set of priorities for your makeup than there was the last time you applied makeup. It took a little bit for me to get used to how I have to apply things differently. But in any case, I made this list of things that you might want to pick up for your starter kit. And that's probably going to be easier to do at the drugstore because if you're going to buy a bunch of stuff at once, you might want to start at the drugstore. If you want to go high end, I have recommendations for both. The first thing I'm going to lead into is tools. Now, back in the 80s, we didn't have these tools, so I really didn't know the importance of them until I got older. And now at 61, I can't imagine. Life would be so much easier for you if you had the proper tools. I recommend that you have a good foundation brush, a powder brush if you use powder, and I believe everyone should have the Glitzy Fritzy Essential Eye Set. Seriously though, if you're going to use eye makeup in your mature years, you really do need to have a good brush set. You know, to do some of the looks that you see here on YouTube. If you're not going to do that, well, you know, but if you're going to try to do these kinds of looks, you should have a good brush set. If you can't afford a whole set, you need two. You need a shader, which is dense and short and will allow you to put eyeshadow on your lid. And you can use it to also put eyeshadow underneath your eye if you want. And you need a blender. This one here is the 201 from BK Beauty. This is the E55. From the Glitzy Fritzy Essential Eye Set. You can multi-purpose the two of them, but if you're only going to have two, I really recommend going synthetic because goat hair brushes, while I love them so much, they require some maintenance, and you really probably shouldn't be washing those brushes every time you use them, and you don't want to be rough with them. If you're going to be rough with brushes, then I can't recommend anything higher than Sigma because there's a reason why they offer the warranty they do on their brushes. They have a patented interlocking technology in the ferrule so that, don't do this, but even if you were like running water down in here, which I found out my daughter was doing, so boo on me for not explaining how to wash a brush to her. There's an interlocking ferrule in here. It's not glued in, so it's going to withstand water. That's why they say these are waterproof. The handles on them aren't wood, so that helps with that too. You know, there's just a whole slew of reasons why I back Sigma the way I do. But another brush company I really like a lot is BK Beauty. I love Lisa J. I love what her company stands for. The BK stands for Be Kind. And these are the same brush, just one with a shorter handle. This is my favorite brush from them to put on foundation. So this is the 101, and I think you can probably see why. It's just really good for doing this. Sigma's version of that is the F47 Multitasker, and there's something about these bristles that handles going into bronzer and powder and everything else. It's called a multitasker for a reason. But these are the two foundation brushes that I would recommend for you. These are the three brushes I like the most for powder, and I've been using this one here for bronzer because that's actually what it's for, is bronzer, but it's also my favorite powder brush from Sigma is the F78, and I like the 104. I like how that tapers up from BK Beauty. This one is really nice. Sigma makes one that tapers up like this, but this is just a little fuller. So I really like that. And from rephr, this is goat hair. And look how mean I am.
You're mean.
Actually, I got that in the brush guard wrong, and look how it dried. That was really bad of me. Another tool that I think that is essential for you to have would be a sponge. And I like this one a lot. This is from e.l.f. It's $5. It has a little bit of a texture to it, so a lot of people prefer the Beauty Blender, or you can pick up repr's version of that. But for me, this works just fine. I like the slant on it. Even if I use a brush to put on my foundation, I usually go over it with a damp sponge. A lot of people use a brush for powder, and I do too occasionally. More often than not, though, you'll find me packing it on with a sponge, a damp sponge. Now I'm going to go in order of the way I like to apply my makeup. So the next step for me is to prime. And you're going to find people that tell you a primer is not necessary. And then you'll find people like me that tell you, yes, it is. If you're the type of person that wants your makeup to last, then you probably want to use a primer. If you're the type of person who wants your eyeshadow to pop and last, not crease, then you're going to want to get an eye primer. What you'll find when you try to put on eyeshadows and you don't have a primer is it may not show up very well. If you're going to be using a brush with powder eyeshadows, I really recommend that you use an eye primer. The eye primer I recommend from the drugstore I don't have here, and that would be Milani's. Just the tiniest little dab on your eyelid. Perfect. Love that one. But my favorite one is actually a crayon stick from Sigma. I like the one in Ignite. It matches my lid color, but they have several different shades that you can use. I like using this whether I have on shadows or not. Face primers, you'll probably find that people argue more about, because some people think that you just don't need a face primer. I think if you want your makeup to stay in place for hours, you should. That and a setting spray. Or you might find that some also will allow you to do both. For instance, the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Setting Spray. You could get by with this before and after. It will absolutely hold your makeup. It looks absolutely beautiful. I love this setting spray, aka primer. But if you want a dedicated primer, high end, I'm always going to tell you, if you love silicone, and I do, then Lancome's La Base Pro. It's absolutely beautiful. It's very expensive too. That's why I only use it on special occasions. And if you like a more moisturizing kind of a primer, Laura Mercier's Pure Canvas, which also comes in an illuminating version, this is really good. This is silicone free. From the drugstore, my current favorites are these. CoverGirl's Simply Ageless. This has niacinamide in it. It's moisturizing. It feels good. Plays nice under makeup. I just really love this. They call it the anti-aging base. I don't know that it's really keeping you from aging, but it looks really good. And this, I have fallen in love with NYX's Marshmellow Primer. It's got marshmallow root in it, and I think that both of these are excellent. Neither one of these have silicone. I already told you about this, but a drugstore setting spray that I really like is the Stay All Night Microfine Setting Mist from e.l.f. This does a really good job, I think. Holds my makeup. I don't know about 16 hours, but it certainly did for 12. On top of that primer, you're going to go in with a foundation, and there's a lot of those I could recommend. But if you have really good skin, then maybe you can get by with just a concealer. And my favorite from the drugstore is this one. From NYX, it is the Bare With Me Concealer Serum. And a lot of days, because I do have pretty good skin for the most part, I can get by with just dabbing on a few discolorations, go over with a little bit of powder. That's when I would use a brush, by the way. If I have on foundation, I always use a sponge to put my powder on. But if I'm just using concealer to patch up a few places, I'll go ahead and use a brush for my powder. My favorite high-end concealer is still Armani's Power Fabric, but it's out of stock a lot, so I also recommend Lancome's Tient Idole. I just think if you have mature skin, you're going to want a good moisturizing, serum-y kind of concealer. I really don't think I'm a snob, but some people have told me that I am a snob because I am one of the people who is of the belief that if you're going to put on foundation in your mature years, that's probably one of the things that I would tell you to splurge on. I think you can find really great things at the drugstore. When it comes to foundation in my mature years, I'm going to tell you that I think you are going to be a lot more happy and satisfied if you would forego some other products and get a good foundation. And I have a lot that I love, but I think for the money, probably two that aren't $60 that you may like would be Haus Labs. You may not like this if you're oily, but if you're dry or have normal skin, you're gonna love that, which I should tell you, I have normal skin that borders on dry in the winter months, so for the most part, I am normal. And the next one you probably knew was gonna come from Lancôme if you've been around here for a while. And I would recommend the Tient Idole Care and Glow, just because most of us like to have a little bit of a glow to our look, and both of these will give that to you. Even with powder, it will look nice. But if I was going to go to the drugstore and try to find something like that that would give me a really nice glow look, then I would recommend this from Revlon, which is the Illuminance store. But like I said, I really highly recommend that you save your pennies on something else you may not need and go for a high-end foundation. Now we come to powders, and in your mature years, maybe you don't even want to use a powder. Maybe you just want to use a setting spray. You probably could get by with just having a setting powder, and whether you have a compact or a loose powder is up to you. But I would say if this is your essential kit, you're just starting out, maybe you want to go with a compact, because the compact can go with you and come back home, all right? Whereas the loose powder, you're not going to be taking that on the go. So from the drugstore, I recommend these two. I love Maybelline Fit Me. I think they do a really good job with setting powder. You could just set your nose, your chin, or wherever it is that you get oily, or you can come in there and go all over your face. And the same goes for this. This is the NYX Can't Stop, Won't Stop Mattifying Powder. So these are two good drugstore versions of a setting powder that you could pick up, and I think either one you'd be satisfied with. And if I'm going high-end compact, it's always Charlotte. This is Lancôme Sponge because Charlotte is stupid and doesn't give you one. Which, by the way, Lancôme also makes a really good one. It's called Dual Intensity. I just don't have that here right now, but that might even be a better choice than this, because this is a slippery little sucker and you'll drop it and break it. I think I've broke two of these before. My drugstore favorite blush at the moment is this Essence Pure Nude Baked Blush. I want to stop here and point out that I did not forget about bronzer. I left it out on purpose after really thinking about what is actually needed. In my mind, you need something after foundation to bring color and dimension back into your face. And for some, that's just going to be bronzer and forego blush. That's great. I actually do that a lot. But for us more mature makeup lovers, we grew up without bronzer. We used blush. And so I decided to just drop the bronzer for right now to save costs and not be so overwhelming. And go with what we are already used to. You can always add bronzer back later if you like, or if you have the money to spend, grab that too. So I'll list below with the other makeup my suggestions if you were just starting out with bronzer. Ooh, I love this one. Look, number 03. It's just so pretty and natural. It has an luminous finish to it. Just so pretty. It just takes a dab. I think you would be happy with any of the shades that they have, but I mean, yeah, really pretty. After all of these years, still my favorite high-end blush is Hourglass. Hourglass, and in Mood Exposure is my favorite. Oh, it's so pretty, so pretty. Looks like it's too pink, right? But it's not. I don't know why that never works when you do swatches on your hands, but it'll flush up your cheeks and just make you look like you are alive. Indeed, you are alive. I think that brows is one of those things where you don't need to go high-end. I mean, I can sit here and tell you about some high-end products, but guys, you can do just as well at the drugstore. I don't think that you need to go high-end, so I'm not going to show you anything high-end. I mean, they've got micro pencils, they've got, all the same stuff at Sephora or wherever, and they're all nice. But if you're just starting back up and building your kit and makeup, then you might not even be very skilled at brows. So I have a few suggestions here. If you're looking for a pencil, all right, I really think that, e.l.f. makes one of the best ones, I think. But it can be intimidating to some people because it is kind of big. So most people like to start with like a micro kind of a pencil, and I love this one from NYX. It's the micro brow pencil. See how little that is? Just stick to where you have hair, okay, and just kind of fill it in, color, And if you want, you can come to the front and draw yourself a few hairs. There are more brow products from NYX that I just really love, but I think that maybe if you want to go pencil, maybe you start here. If you don't need to draw hairs, you have hair, or maybe if you just want to do parts where you have hair, Essence makes a really good Make Me Brow. Now listen, their shade range is awful, so you may not find this in your shade, but if you can, I think that this is one of the better ones. Okay, so it's got a tiny little brush on it, and I have it in ash brown. They make a few other colors, but you know, something like this, you need to have brow hair, because that's how it works. It's got little fibers in it. It's a tint. You just run it through where you have hair. For me, that is through here, not in the very front. So I'll use this product like from here back, and I'll use a pencil in the front. But if I were going to talk to you about, you know, doing your brows and you have no skill at it, I might tell you to get a powder palette, because I think that it was, for me anyway, the easiest way to start out was with this. Now you will need an additional brush if you're going to use this, unless the kit comes with the brush like Wet n Wild's does, and it's a pretty good kit too. But where I think e.l.f. has it over the rest of them is this tinted wax, which you can see I use almost exclusively. That's the thing I'm after when I'm in here. I just want a quick throw it on brow, and I'll take a little angle brush and go in there and just kind of dab it in the front and all the way through my brow, and it's done. You could set it with one of these powders. In fact, when I went on vacation the last time, this was what I used for my brows and my eyeshadow. I mean, I took it with the intention of doing my brows, and I took some eyeshadow, but I ended up using this little palette for both. I put this in my brow, and then I would set it with like that color, and then I would use these two in my crease, and that was it. When you do your brows with powder, if you mess up, all you have to do is take a little wet wipe and just wipe it back off. And then just do it again. It's just so much easier if you make a mistake with powder. And I highly recommend this one from e.l.f., this bite size, and it's because of that. That tinted wax. Since we've done the brows now, let's go ahead and jump to the eyeshadow. There's all kinds of eyeshadows out there, of course. They range from a couple of bucks to a few hundred, but a nice neutral palette will serve you well until you can afford other eyeshadows. Of course, I'm going to tell you my palette with Sydney Grace is neutrals and pops of color if you want to graduate up. This one is the deep version. Shameless plug. I'm shameless. You know, and this is the light version. But, you know, if you're not ready for something like this, e.l.f. makes all these little bite-sized palettes that don't take up very much room. You could just like put them in a cup or something on your vanity. They could go with you if you traveled or whatever, so you could pick up a neutral one. As far as eyeliners go, Milani at the drugstore, their Stay Put line will stay put. But my recommendation is Give Beauty. I think they make an excellent line it up liner. I like using black in the tight line because I think that it really makes my eyelashes, you know, stand out. Only two more things, lipstick and mascara, and for both, you could stay at the drugstore. My favorite drugstore lipsticks right now are from e.l.f. It's their O Face line. I think that they rival the NARS Audacious line. These are just really nice lipsticks with, I think, pretty luxe packaging for drugstore. And, you know, I've got a lipstick from Dior. Well, actually, I've got Tom Ford lipsticks that were even more than the Dior lipstick, I think. And, you know, are they any better? No. Well, not really. They're not. So, you know, like brows, I would say maybe you just avoid, for now, the whole high-end thing when it comes to lipstick. You don't need to step out of the drugstore, and you certainly don't need to step out of the drugstore for mascara. I like pretty much any mascara from Maybelline. There's a few CoverGirl that I like. Essence makes the Lash Princess. I like that one. I'd be far better to tell you what mascaras I don't like at the drugstore than ones I do. I will say that if you find yourself needing like a waterproof mascara, then I think that you should maybe look at tubing mascaras, and this one's a really good one. It's called Highly Rated. from Milani. Tubing mascaras are a little bit better if you have watery eyes. They wrap little tubes around your lashes and they remove with warm water. Unlike a waterproof mascara where you're probably going to have to invest in a really good eye makeup remover and be really working your under eyes, which are probably every bit as wrinkled as mine. And these two are my favorite from the drugstore. The L'Oreal Double Extend and the Milani Highly Rated. I would suggest that over a waterproof mascara at our age because, you know, of all the tugging and whatnot to take it off. All right, then those are my suggestions for the things that you may need if you're just getting into makeup and you're wanting to start. I also want to let you know before you go that you are the best part. You. That's you right there. You are the best part of the Fritzy family. If you don't feel like you're having a very blessed day, the way that you can make that better is to go out and be a blessing to somebody else. And until next time, love you, see ya. Bye. And I'm out.
While to do, but not done yet. That wasn't a fart. Okay, that was me like doing this on the floor. Now I can't get it to do it, so you really think I did fart, don't you? You can admit it. Sorry. Now we come to foundation, and don't anybody get out tomatoes and throw them at me or anything. Yeah, like that would really hurt because you're on camera. Go ahead, throw tomatoes, see if I care. So for the most part, I am normal. So there you go. I know a lot of you will argue with that. I think it makes my lashes look more poof, you know, poof. Is that right? Does it make your lashes look poof, Mary? Makes them look poof. I'm shameless. Every time I see you here, I'm promoting my brush set. And I borrowed that from Gar, so, you know, he already knows about it. Just don't worry about it. Just don't worry about it. Just look what I did to that poor goat's hair. Can you see it? Now, come on. Yeah, that's bad. Bad. Don't do that to your brushes. Bad. Until next time, love you, see ya. Bye. And I'm out. I did that all wrong, didn't I? I did. See, I was looking at my hands.